For the past 5, maybe 10 minutes, been thinking to myself how I'm gonna actually start this, and nothing's really come to mind. So I just hit start, and we'll see how it goes. Essentially, this is Lucy. Um, she's been my dog for a very long time. To be honest, I I can't even remember the day we got her, but she's been quite a big part of my life. And to cut to the chase, no, this isn't just a happy, hey, look at my dog video. I'm making this similar to the one I made about my sister's dog, Daxter, because Lucy has passed away recently. We had to put her down on the 21st. Oh, I don't know why that happened. Visual error or something. Anyway, we had to put her down on the 21st because she was having a lot of issues with her legs. Essentially, her back legs just couldn't hold her weight anymore. She'd been throwing up quite a lot on the day that we decided that it would be best just to sort of take the pain away. She had been sort of walking in circles, almost stumbling in circles, unable to sort of reach for a sort of straight line goal. She had been falling a lot, and I don't mean like tripping up and sort of catching herself, like actually falling and getting to the point where she could seriously injure herself. There it is again. And so we decided that it was probably for the best that we just sort of take the pain away. And so we got her, we had her put down, and despite the fact that we all agreed that it was for the best, there's always a part of me that wishes she didn't have to go. But she's with Daxter now. Anyway, this isn't meant to be a super sad video despite the horrific start that we've had, but similarly to the Daxter video, I wanted to celebrate all of the great times that Lucy has brought to my life. And so I've set up a bunch of images as well. I know, slideshow just like last time. A slightly different format, but I know. Anyway, so this is Lucy. This is my new background picture on my phone. I think it's one of the best photos I ever took of her. It really shows her. Really shows her in a good light. A lot of the time she was quite happy to lie down on the couch, which happened to be quite dark in colour. So it was very difficult to sort of make her out unless she had her tongue out, just smiling. Or you had the type of camera that would make the eyes sort of glow a sort of demon red. But yeah, this is just one of the more clearer photos I have of her. But anyway, let's move on. This photo on the left was actually taken, I want to say, maybe a month before she passed. And you can tell she's quite old in this photo. based on all the grey hairs that have grown on her face. I thought it was quite cute at first. And to be honest, I still think it is. Just shows her age, and it's kind of adorable. You know, humans get stuck with this sort of shitty things like balding and sagging skin, and dogs just get a very beautiful change in hair colour sometimes. Anyway, this is a much younger photo of her. You can tell she's got a lot less grey hairs around her face, but still just as beautiful. You can ignore my face here. This is when I was quite young. I also will say that I've taken out a lot of pictures and videos that were really nice, just because they featured other family members, and I didn't want to sort of just throw them out into the public eye like that. But yeah, this was Lucy when she was quite younger. As you can see, she's quite small in comparison to just like my arm there, and she's still looking rather young in her face. She always liked to. I think I mentioned that Daxter was always a good pillow. Lucy always liked to use people as pillows. Oh. But yeah, that's her on her favourite couch with me, just resting on my chest, and this is us outside on one of the dog beds, and she's just lying on my lap, falling asleep. Anyway. This was probably during the summer, because Lucy often did lay on the tiles. She was quite a lot like me, I guess. In the summer times, she would overheat, because Australia's really bloody hot in the summer, and so one of the nicest places to lie down was just on the tiles. It's nice and cold almost all the time, you know, heat rises, so it's literally as far away as you can get without going outside and being scorched. But yeah, she loved to lie down on the tiles, but she also loved her dog beds as well. Never her dog beds, it's always been Raymond's dog bed. If you don't know, it's another dog. Raymond is a little dash hound. And this was meant to be his bed, but both Lucy and Daxter, the much bigger dogs, always found it comforting to lie in. I don't know why. But it seemed to make them happy. And it certainly made us all happy watching them try, you know. Butt sticking out a little, tail definitely sticking out, and the paws over here hanging out by a mile. It looks incredibly uncomfortable, but she'd lay like that for hours, if at a time. She absolutely loved it. I think she also liked the sort of enclosed walls. Not that they're doing much for her, but I think that's also why she liked lying down on the couch, is because she had like a pillow behind her as well as underneath, and something to rest her head on, you know, a little piece to the side. So there you go, there she is on her favourite couch. This is her just lying in the sort of regular seating position, you know, getting comfortable, waiting for pets, waiting for cuddles. And then this is her when she's a bit more settled and relaxed, props her head up on the little armrest on the side and really gets cozy. Could easily fall asleep in these positions. And then this is her once again in a dog bed that's way too small. She was always ready to receive belly rubs from anyone at any given point in time. In fact, she quite often made a habit of going up and sitting right next to people and just waiting. And if they weren't offering cuddles, she'd find the next person. uh, Admittedly, it's not the clearest image. Honestly, I really wish, first of all, I took more photos and videos in general of her, and did it with a more high definition camera, for sure. But obviously, we're limited to what we have at the time that we have, and this is what I had. So you can see the eagerness on her face as she quickly rolls back, though. So adorable. Oh, okay. And there you go. This is another picture of her loving her couch. She always, she was always doing a strange maneuver. I don't really know how to describe it other than like she'd just lie down on a couch as if she was human. Obviously, it would be uncomfortable for her to sort of like prop herself up on her back and have all that weight on her spine and her back legs, but she'd sit similarly to this and then just sort of lean into and hug the couch, which I always thought was really adorable. In this instance, she's looking out the window outside somewhere, maybe saw a bird or something. And yes, this was around the Christmas time, so Christmas tree in the background. But yeah, here she is again, sitting by the back door, just looking for cuddles, as she always does. Did. Alright. And here, of course, is once again a bunch of memory joggers for me to just tell you guys a little bit about her and what she was like as a dog. So, you know, strap in, I guess. So Lucy always loved to bring us gifts and little presents. And so if you ever came home after a long day, or if you were gone even for like just an hour, maybe even two, Lucy always used to hear the front door opening, rush out, either toy in mouth, ready, or she'd run out, find who it was, and then go quickly find a toy to bring them. And Lucy never really cared for toys. Like, if you gave her one, she would either just hold on to it, or she'd just leave it alone, not really care too much. She was never the sort of possessive type to sort of hoard toys or be jealous if another dog had them or things like that. She always sort of treated them as like, I guess, presents for us rather than her. And so every time we give her one, she'd just bring it back. She'd bring it back or take it to someone else and sort of re-gift it, and it was adorable. She also had this weird fondness for socks, where if, for example, you folded up a pair of dirty socks or even clean ones, and they happened to be either on the floor for some reason or on a relatively accessible table, she would also just assume these were dog toys or presents, and every now and then, if she couldn't find a proper squeaky toy or a bone or some sort of ball, she'd just pick up the first pair of socks she could find and bring those instead. And she would always drop them. Like I said, she's not really possessive over the toys, so she'd always bring them to you and then drop them at your feet and be like, did I do good? It was amazingly cute. And sometimes just out of nowhere, you'd just be in one room, you'd be focusing on something, you'd be watching a video or something, and then all of a sudden Lucy would just come out of nowhere. Here you go, have some socks. It was really cute. And then I already mentioned the small beds part, and you guys saw some examples of that. Now the cowlick. If you guys don't know what a cowlick is, essentially, if you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think Appa does it a lot, where essentially it gets its name from, like, if a cow licks, like, the top of your head or something, your hair will all stick up just from all the saliva. And another the dog I was talking, the dachshund I was talking about, Raymond, he he was often the target for this. Lucy would occasionally, like, they don't often show affection, those two, but the occasional time Lucy did, she'd lick the top of his head, and all of his hair on the top of his head would just stand up. You could immediately tell that Lucy had been showing some affection that day. Raymond just walks around the corner with his hair all frayed up, and Lucy's walking right behind him looking happy as hell. And then the cuddle bribes. Essentially, weirdly enough, most Labradors would do anything for food, but Lucy personally would much rather to have cuddles. So, for example, my oldest sister's dog, I'm completely mind blanking on what type of dog it is. Border Collie? Maybe? No. Anyway, whatever type of dog it is, he's really energetic, he's really fast-paced and jumping all over the place. Lucy's much more of a gentle, slow-moving, passionate, sort of adorable pupper. And so we'd have to put up a fence between the two, because if allowed to be let loose, Franklin would be just like that little goat baby that was all over the internet a while back, and just literally pounce and jump in a very happy and loving way. He just doesn't understand that people don't like to be jumped on. So we had to separate the two with a little bit of a small fence. And so whenever Lucy was on that side and we had to try and lure her back, because the fence also separated the outside from the inside, so whenever she went out to use the toilet and we had to lure her back, a lot of the times my sisters would try and use food to sort of entice her, and she'd just sort of stare at them like, what? why do you think I want that? You know, I get fed daily. I don't really need more food. And the occasional time she did want it, she'd absolutely knew for a fact that if she waited long enough, she'd get a taster to try and sort of lure her into getting the rest. But she never actually got up for the rest. She always just got the taster and was like, ha, in your face, I got a little bit at least, and just stayed there. But it was really a good feeling when my sisters tried to lure her back to the other side of the fence with dog biscuits and, you know, little treats like that, and it didn't work. And then they'd ask me if I could try and lure Lucy back, and all I'd have to do is sit on the other side of the fence and gesture for her to come towards me, because I'd give her cuddles, and she wouldn't hesitate. She'd jump right up, wander straight over, and of course I'd deliver. You couldn't not deliver after seeing how happy she looked getting up and coming straight for the cuddles. So it was always easier to bribe her with cuddles and affection rather than food like dog biscuits or anything like that. Alright. Fast eater and too fast. They're sort of similar sides of the same coin, and this was, admittedly, this was a little bit of Daxter's fault. You see, Daxter was very much the opposite, where, don't get me wrong, he loved affection, he loved his cuddles, he loved being held, all that, but he did really love his food. Uh, he was always a really big lab, really big boy. Mainly because I think we overfed him a little every now and then, but he seemed quite happy. And to be fair, with the antics that he got himself into, sometimes we couldn't even predict what he'd do and how he'd manage to get access to certain foods while no one was looking. But essentially, Daxter was really big on his food, and both Daxter and Lucy would get fed at the same time. So whenever Daxter had finished his food, he'd always try and knock Lucy out of the way and grab whatever was left of her food, or he'd just outright leave his food alone and go for Lucy's, and shove her out the way to try and eat hers first, sort of knock her out or push her away and distract her a little before she found out that she could go and grab his food instead. And so Lucy very quickly became a fast eater, where she ended up finishing her meals a lot earlier than Daxter would. And she learned very quickly that, like I said, if Daxter was shoving her out of the way to grab her food, she could just move around and grab his while he wasn't looking. And then the too fast part actually is a bit more of a sad part. A lot of the times it feels like she didn't really chew her food, especially if it was already quite bite-sized, It felt like she was swallowing it whole a lot of the time, because in the last sort of few months of her life, she did I won't say it was that often, but she did throw up a bit, and you could see pretty much all of her dinner in her vomit, which wasn't super pleasant. But we gave her some time, we let her drink some water, we didn't feed her anymore. We weren't trying to replace what she had gotten rid of, because obviously her body got rid of it for a reason. And we just tried our best to look after her and keep her safe and all that. So that was her. I think that was a result of her eating too fast, is sometimes she'd vomit it up really quickly, because yeah. And snoring. Admittedly, I didn't have to put up with this as much as my sister did, because Lucy, come to think of it, Lucy, once Daxter had passed away, Lucy became really attached to my sister. Essentially because Daxter and Lucy used to sleep in the same room as my sister. And then when Daxter passed away, I think Lucy, at the time, she didn't realise what was happening. As most dogs probably wouldn't. They don't realise that their friend has just passed away, and they don't understand the concept, and so, they're wondering why everybody's crowding over them and crying and really sad. And then all of a sudden they're just gone. You don't see that dog anymore. But yeah, so I think Lucy really got attached to my sister when Daxter passed away, because, well, she was the only other one in that room. And so Lucy and her snoring, which was rather loud and adorable, was quite excessive in some parts, but it was really a defining feature, and it was adorable, despite sometimes it could be quite loud and potentially obnoxious if you're trying to listen to something else, and she's just snoring away. Oh. And these kind headbutts, this sort of ties in with how much she loves cuddles. Essentially, I think I mentioned with Daxter that he would basically bowl you over. Like, if he was looking for cuddles, he would push through you and then sort of back up a little and then get the cuddles. Whereas Lucy decided very, very early on that the best way to receive cuddles was to sit practically on top of, if not just barely in front of the person. And so a lot of the times she would sort of slowly walk up to you, and then she'd like push the top of her head into your chest, and then she'd really give you a bit of a shove and then sit down before just being like right in front of you in your face, smiling happy as ever and awaiting the cuddles and the pets. And admittedly, this did get a little dangerous at some point because we do have a log fireplace in the house, and a lot of the time during the winter months, if we were sat near the fire, because obviously it was quite warm, and Lucy came up to us and gave us a little nudge, it was quite the scare when we had to quickly figure out where we could safely place our hands to avoid getting knocked over into the burning box of death. But she didn't have a care in the world so long as she got those cuddles. Anything for the cuddles. And then these next two about the fences, they were very much about her early life rather than her later life. A month or two ago, not even, like, within the past year, you would not have seen Lucy doing either of these things, but essentially at one point, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but Lucy used to have a favourite sort of spot in the garden to go to the toilet. But I think Mum didn't want her going there or something, or something happened, and essentially that wasn't a good place for her to go there. And so there was a fence put up. Admittedly, it was only like, I don't know, a metre off the ground or something, but, you know, it was enough to sort of block most attempts to walk straight in or sort of sneak around and find a way back in there. But Lucy just found a way of jumping. She ended up just teaching herself to jump over the fence to get to her favourite spot to go to the toilet, which, you know, obviously is a quite sad thing when you think about it. Like, she's obviously wanting to go, but she's also having to jump to do it. But it wasn't as though we didn't have other spots for her to go, and they were of similar quality. You know, at the time, I believe it was sort of like just a bunch of dirt that she liked to go to the toilet on, and so we had dirt inside the fenced area for her to go on, but she didn't like it, so she made a habit of jumping the fence. And I'm pretty sure my mum asked my dad to extend the fence upwards maybe 3-4 times because every time they would extend the fence, Lucy would still be able to jump it. It was quite amazing, actually. It ended up being like almost around 2 meters tall before she soon realized that, like, that was much too high for her to be jumping over. And so then she resorted to digging under it. I don't know why she had such a personal attachment to that particular spot in the garden, but she really loved it, and so she started digging under the fence to crawl under, do her business, and then crawl back. And so my dad had to then extend the fence downwards into the ground to try and prevent her from doing that. Honestly, that was great times. It really was. And then licking. I think all dogs admittedly do the thing where they go for a drink from the water bowl. Obviously, they've got their tongue really wet from all the water and just sort of dripping all over the place, sort of thing. But I don't know if your dogs do this, but I've found my dogs all do. Whenever they finish drinking from the water bowl, they immediately find, like, either a person or an object that is obviously less wet than their tongue, and they just lick it. I don't know if it's to get excess water off or if they don't like the taste of the water or something, but Lucy always
used to have a nice drink and then immediately go up to the closest person's leg and then just start licking them. It was admittedly quite adorable, but it did get a little gross later on because, like I said, she has a favorite couch, and like I said, like I showed, she always liked lying down on it. But and this is a little bit gross. She always liked to lick it as well. Like if there wasn't any people around, she'd jump up on the couch, lie down, get cozy, and then just start licking the couch. Which, admittedly, she did have a bit of bad breath for the most part, so her licking the couch didn't exactly make it a super pleasant place for humans to exist on. But I like to think of that as her way of claiming her territory, just saying like, "This is my couch now. I'm forever just going to exist here. You have to deal with it, or or not, and just don't do anything about it." But yeah, overall, she was a very quiet pup. I mean, admittedly, I call dogs puppies throughout their whole lives because every dog is just a big pup to me. And so pretty much throughout her whole life, she's been very quiet. Like when she was quite young, she was very energetic, as I said, jumping fences and digging under. Very a lot of energy in her when she was a lot younger. And some of her favorite spots to sit were in high places, sort of out of the way. Like that was Daxter could get a little rough at times, and so jumping up to those high places and getting away, he was quite a bit bigger than her at the time, so he wasn't able to manage it. But he'd managed to get maybe his two front paws up, but that was it. She knew that she was safe up in those high places. But yeah, aside from her sort of younger life, like playing soccer as well, like admittedly, Dax and Lucy weren't really into the small tennis ball sort of things. Like individually, yeah, they'd play a bit of fetch, but if you got out a soccer ball or a basketball and started kicking it around the garden, they'd have so much more fun with that. They'd chase after it, try and bite it, try and paw at it. If they did eventually puncture it and start to slowly deflate it, they could play tug of war with it. And they really enjoyed that. Tearing it to pieces. It was always worth it to buy a new basketball every time. Every time. It didn't matter how much it cost to get a new one, how many we had been through. The dogs just had such a great time with it, it was so worth it. But yeah, for the most part, she was very quiet. She never really barked unless she needed to. Like, for instance, if a door was shut and she wasn't able to get through it to get outside to go to the toilet, that would be the time that she'd bark. She was honestly like a sort of movie dog, I guess you could say. Always on script, only barked when sort of necessary. Other than that, just sort of stayed quiet. Played the character really well. But no, she was a great pup. She was very quiet, and sometimes I wish she was a bit more outspoken. But no, I loved Lucy for who she was, and she liked being quiet. And compared to Daxter and Raymond, there was enough noise in the house already. So I think she was just making sure to keep the balance, keep the peace, keep it quiet, and. But yeah, she was a massive part of my life, and I loved her so much. And I don't know, it's still quite almost not real to me that she's gone now. Even though I was a part of the decision making for putting her down. But she really was a lovely dog. She always cared about people. If you're ever having a shitty day, Admittedly, you did have to be like on eye level with her, like lying, sitting on the ground or lying on the ground. She'd always come up to you, admittedly asking for cuddles, but in my mind, it was always her way of saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Sort of checking up on you and making sure you're okay. It'd be nice to have that. But yeah, before she before she was put down, we all gave her as many cuddles as we could. And I don't know, it was just a weird, different experience for me. Because with Daxter, I don't know if I mentioned it, but with Daxter, we kind of just woke up and he had passed away in his sleep. Whereas with Lucy, it was much harder because we could see she was getting old. She was getting deaf as well in her old age. You know, calling her name out, she would only really hear certain tones. Whereas before, it was like the second you called her name, she'd snap her head trying to turn it fast enough to see who was going to give her some cuddles or some attention. But yeah, she was really getting old. You know, a little bit deaf. I mean, hell, she survived 1.5 years longer than Daxter did. I think. But yeah, she really was a horrible feeling when she was put to sleep. But at the same time, it was a much worse feeling watching her try and go outside and then tripping over the dog door and falling and potentially hurting herself. She'd get back up and one of her back legs would be up in the air as if she'd landed on it or something, and none of us could bear to watch that happen until she had passed away in her sleep, hopefully peacefully. Because that means while she was awake and trying to move around, and even in her old age, she was always eager to move around. Like I said, she got really attached to my sister, and so whenever she moved from one room to the other, Lucy would follow. Didn't matter who else was in the room at the time, didn't matter how many people were willing to give her cuddles, if my sister left the room, she would follow. And so we just didn't really, we didn't want to see her struggle and hurt herself going to those lengths to move around. And like I said, she was falling over. It was only a matter of time until she seriously hurt herself and we'd have to take her to the vet. And so instead of letting her suffer and fall over and potentially hit herself on a lot of the objects around her and her environment, while her back legs quite often would sort of shake if she stood still. Like I said, fail her if she tried to walk anywhere, or she'd just end up walking in circles. It made it real difficult for her to sit down without sort of falling down, or just falling straight into lying down even if she didn't mean to. And we just didn't want to see her suffer. Like, she never really, like I said, she's quite quiet, so she never really made it known if she was in any sort of pain other than physical signs that we could see. And so when it got to the point where every other step she was taking, she was falling, that was kind of the deciding factor there. Like there were many other things leading up to it, like her throwing up her food, her constantly coughing and as if something was stuck in her throat. We think she had some sort of heart and lung problem as well at one point. And similarly to Daxter, she had little lumps forming, sort of, I think they were like little fatty tumours. And so we knew it was best to, like I said, remove the pain from the situation. And so, as she wasn't very fond of going outside. She had a bit of a fear of alleyways and other dogs, and so whenever she was put into an alleyway, she would always try and sprint through it as fast as she could, even if it meant choking on her own collar. And so, for a long part of her life, she just stayed at home, and she was very content with that. Even if, the front door was wide open, she wouldn't dare walk out there. She was much happier inside. And so when she was going to be put down, we got the vet called out to our home to do it so that she would feel most comfortable and wouldn't be afraid or scared. And I know a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to bear that, having to watch their dog get put to sleep. But honestly, I'm really glad I found out about the whole putting your pet to sleep situation, because one of my sisters is a vet. And so I get a lot of social media stuff about the vets, but it is so much more worse if your dog's being put down and they don't understand why you're not there with them and in those final moments. And so when the vet showed up, we were all patting her. She was lying on the ground at the time, having the time of her life by the looks of it. And we were all patting her, making a big fuss out of her, making her feel really loved. And then she was gone. Anyway, I think that's just about everything. I'll leave you guys with one of my favourite photos that I've ever taken of not only Lucy but Daxter and Raymond as well. It's a couple of photos, but essentially in the photo on the left that I'll be showing, I just took a photo of all three of them. This is sort of sunbathing outside on the artificial grass, and then on the right was seconds later when I had said the word puppies out loud to get their attention. And as you can see, Daxter and Lucy both turned to look towards me, but Raymond did not give a shit. That really shows their personalities quite a lot. Raymond always has been a little bit of a savage. He just couldn't care less.
But Dax and Lucy, immediate full attention. I'm gonna miss her so much. But there you go. I know despite it was mostly me being quite sad about Lucy's passing, she led a really good life. They all always looked after each other. Daxter and Raymond would always get into little petty squabbles every now and then, but they did get along quite well when there weren't any sort of toys or things to argue about, and Lucy was always the mediator, just the relaxed dog in the middle, having to deal with the boys causing a mess. But yeah, I know this has mostly been quite a sad thing, but I just wanted to share with you guys what Lucy was like. Always quiet, such a lovely dog. Preferred cuddles to food, and would happily lie in bed all day if it meant someone was constantly petting her. I'm gonna miss searching for my socks to find out where they randomly ended up around the house. And similarly to Daxter, every now and then she would lie down in a really awkward spot that sort of blocked a hallway or a main walking area, and once again I'm gonna miss that. Along with her snoring. I'm gonna miss her a lot. And admittedly, I really wish I took more photos and videos of her. I'm sure I've got more of them somewhere, but I just really wish I took a lot more. So, if any of you have actually watched this video all the way to the end now, and you've got dogs, please spend some time with them. Spend some time with them. Make the memories last. Make sure they know that they're loved. I think that's probably going to wrap it up. So sadly, both Lucy and Daxter have now passed away. It's just a little guy left, and I think he is getting on, but he is quite younger than these two, so I'm gonna be giving him all my love now. In both memory of Daxter and Lucy. Despite him being a little shit and looking away from the camera. But yeah, so take care of your dogs, everybody. Give them some love from me. Anyway, if I don't upload or stream anytime soon, it's because I need a bit more time. So yeah, I really wanted to let you all know about Lucy and how much she meant to me. Because the last time that I did this with Daxter, it made me feel a whole lot better. Because it felt like I could. It felt like I could tell someone. It felt like I was able to. I don't know. Share just how lovely he was. So I'm really happy I'm able to do this with Lucy as well. Anyway, I've been rambling for a bit now, so love your dogs, everybody, and your cats and your pets in general, your family too. This is generally I'm quite close to dogs, and a lot of people say like they prefer animals to humans and pets to humans, dogs to humans, or whatever. But the truth is, if you care about anyone that's close to you, or any pet that's close to you, you should always be showing them how much you love them. Anyway, take care of those who are close to you, especially your pets, because they can't communicate on the level that we can, and a lot of the times it's your actions and what you do that shows them that you care. So, yeah. Look after yourselves, everyone. Yourself. You are just as important as those who are loved around you and who you love. So, take care of yourself and take care of those around you. And, yeah, give all your pets some love from me. Anyway, have a great rest of your week, and goodbye.